Ya. Entonces ya le digo, esto realmente era una maravilla, era una belleza. Ya. Pero así como digo, ha cambiado tanto. Le ha dado
coastal erosion, extreme weather conditions, potential problems of diseases related to pathogens being pushed around, seawater intrusion into freshwater, and with glaciated melting and receding of glaciers, you're going to see deposits into the marine life that will have an impact on humans. Those 5 factors appear to be fairly uncontroverted before you get into the politics of who caused it, whether it's going to continue, and what we can do about it.
Climate change has occurred throughout time. In the last 650,000 years, there have been 7 cycles of glacial advance and retreat. Many of these climate changes are actually related to very small changes in the Earth's orbit that affect the amount of solar energy our planet receives. From rising seas to fluctuating CO2 levels, climate change is a continuous process. These global processes and their consequences are also tied to our atmosphere. We have only one atmosphere, which protects our planet through a process known as the greenhouse effect. The greenhouse effect includes the ozone layer, which filters harmful solar radiation, and the 6 main greenhouse gases: carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, methane, sulfur hexafluoride, perfluorocarbon, and hydrofluorocarbon. These gases trap emissions released from the surface of the Earth, whether natural or man-made. This results in a warmer climate because increased levels of these gases trap more heat in the atmosphere. Emissions released remain in the atmosphere for this reason as well, and can travel to anywhere in the world, as is the case with the cloud of toxins caused by industry in China that impacts, for example, the United States western coastline. Climate change caused by an increase of emissions, and the greenhouse effect is impacting the planet in many ways. The worlds of both people and nature are changing slightly every day and changing drastically over the years. Some examples of these effects can be seen in locations such as Kenya. Over the past 25 years, Kenya's Lake Turkana has lost 6% of its volume due to sedimentation and climate change. The Omo River feeds Lake Turkana and is responsible for 80 to 90% of its volume. In previous years, the river has had a lesser volume due to uncharacteristic drought from longer dry seasons and less rain. The lower water levels have meant less flooding, which is allowing deltic sedimentation. This increases the ion concentrations, namely salinity, in the lake, and negatively impacts fish and wildlife living in and around the lake, and, subsequently, the humans that rely on these ecosystems to sustain themselves. Another example of an effect climate change is having is a rising level of the seas and the problems this causes for coastal populations. Since 2009, it is estimated that 1 person every second has been displaced by disaster, and an average of 22.5 million people have been displaced by the climate or weather-related events since 2008. Over the past 3 decades, the number of humans displaced by weather-incited disasters or conflicts has risen by 250%. Examples of such people are in the Carteret and Maldives Islands. A third example of how climate is impacting our planet is the melting of polar ice caps and glaciers. Ice caps and glaciers store approximately 70% of Earth's fresh water. For example, the Columbia Glacier is one of the largest glaciers along the Alaska coast near Prince William Sound, 34 miles in length and 3 miles wide. Columbia Glacier is one of the world's fastest moving glaciers, retreating 80 to 115 feet per day. Because of climatic impacts and their socioeconomic consequences, the international world recognized the need to convene and begin climate change discourse. In 1990, an intergovernmental panel on climate change was established to evaluate relevant information on the issue.
The truth is, we will begin winning on this issue when we find environmental sustainability and economic sustainability discussed in the same conversation.
For years now, we have had the technology that would allow landfills to be capped and the methane to be extracted and put into our electrical grid.
Taking the fluoride gases, perfluorocarbon, hydrofluorocarbon, sulfur hexafluoride, and capturing them under the Montreal Protocol. So while those 3%, while those gases only constitute 3%, the global warming potential of those gases is far more significant.
And policy has been implemented which has directly led to emissions being reduced here, but dramatically increased overseas. And we have moved emissions, point source emissions, from parts of the world where there's tremendous regulation and enforcement to parts of the world where there isn't any standards at all.
So, am I making you guys nervous? You need to understand the science behind climate. You need to understand the technologies that exist, and you need to understand the financial consequences, which would include tax reductions, tax credits, tax breaks. And when you begin to drill down and have an informed conversation, you begin to see it brings the world together.
Both the challenge and the opportunity for this generation is to harness the intellectual capability to drive an awareness and action on these complex issues.
Today we spend $380 billion a year on energy sources coming from countries who are largely in opposition to our national security. We're sending money to the very people using those financial resources and turning them into bullets and shooting back at us.
Can't we imagine a future where we can deal with the environment in a way that will create a robust opportunity, not a resistance to opportunity?
We have let politicians divide our own interests in a way that you have to choose Armageddon or the climate is not changing. And I refuse to accept either one.
International governments have helped facilitate a roadmap to a healthier, more sustainable global environment. The Rio Earth Summit was the first convention to own climate change in 1992, and 3 additional international gatherings have taken place since then. Although criticisms have been made concerning the accountability and actual progress of these conventions, they have nonetheless stimulated engaging conversation about the implications of climate change. Many governments around the world have taken the first step in passing legislation that would help to improve the environment. There have been many cases where governments lack enforcement of this legislation. Many of these nations are in the process of developing and are being aided by outside organizations such as the United Nations. To enhance the development of the economy, as well as protect the environment, aid should be given in the form of sustainable energy sources, such as biomass or solar panels, instead of money directly to the government. By investing in developing nations in the form of sustainable renewable energy sources, nations could be built from the bottom up on ecologically friendly practices, as long as the governments work to strictly regulate the policies. San Cristobal has worked to reach 50% renewable energy through wind turbines. Through the efforts of the government and the helpful people of San Cristobal, the island plans to reach 100% clean energy by 2020. We, as the general public, can make a difference through informed discourse as opposed to politicized extremes. We need to base our approach on incontrovertible fact. The climate has changed throughout all of time. The population has more than doubled in the last 50 years and continues to grow. More than 80% of all people live within 60 miles of the coast. Naturally, humanity is putting more stress on our global environment. However, we can't sit back and say the situation is hopeless. We see opportunity rather than just misfortune and liability. The consequences are too great for inaction. Geopolitical, national security, population displacement, extreme weather, and more. We have the opportunity to seize and direct our future accordingly to our ability. We can think more carefully about our lifestyles and purchasing habits, bring the discussion to the arena of public health, and create a more environmentally, economically, and socially sustainable society. From investing in renewable energy and sustainable innovation to organizing grassroots efforts and advocating for environmental justice and the health of our children, everyone has a role to play. Climate change is a wake-up call, a call to action, and there's only us to answer it.
¿Qué es?
Es con unas patas, pícaros patas azules, abajo tiene color azul y acá un pico y un poquito blanco.
Sí.
A mí me gusta eso y las iguanas.
born 1992. The water has risen 3.2 millimeters in all those years, and the worst to come is still I fear, 'cause apocalypse may not be now, but if we don't control climate change